Hey guys, it's Brant, and I'm back with Carla,
Hello.
and we're back. I gave you a chance to speak, Carla.
Yeah.
I didn't talk over you and just keep right on going. I'm going to save that for right now. We're back with another track versus track, and I was excited about this one. I am excited about this one. We're going to have Dress to Kill going up against the new opponent, Destroyer. And man, what an iconic album! Love it, hate it. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people love to hate it. Some people like most of it, hate the other part. There's some people's favorite songs on here, and some of their most hated songs is on this album. And to me, one of my favorite tracks, my favorite Kiss track, is on this album. Detroit Rock City is on this, and I just love the whole theatrics of the song, how it starts off and you get that visual going on in your head. And I've heard, it's funny because I saw some people posting this on the comments, and some people thought the same thing that I did. I used to visualize that he was eating and then washing dishes. And some people's like, nah, he's working on his car. He's working on his car. I'm like, well, to a kid, it sounded like he was washing his dishes.
Right.
It sounded like silverware clinking around in the sink. And but that whole thing, Bob Ezrin and what he did for this, that whole opening, and some of the things on here that Kiss did that they had not done up to this point, with the female background singers and some instruments they had never used. And then some of the things, some types of songs they had never done, like Great Expectations and Sweet Pain, and some of the subject matter of Sweet Pain, being about bondage. And and this is when
Right.
Kiss was still bad boys, but they'd made some money coming off of Alive. They'd made some money. And I was looking at something, Carla, whenever I was looking at the discography. I always go online and I just pull up Kiss discography, and it's amazing the quality of work that these guys, one, their age, they were young,
Yeah.
and Peter was the old man, but he was still in his barely over his mid-20s at this point in time.
Right.
Some of the guys, Paul was 23, 24. Ace was right there with him. Gene a little older, and that's young. I mean, Mike, I've got 23, 24-year-old kids that have just now moved out of the house. And I could
Right.
not imagine them being at this caliber. But they were pumping out albums. The first album, Kiss album, came out. 6 months later, they put out Hotter Than Hell. 5 or 6 months later, they put out, Dress to Kill. Then, like, within 6 months, they put out Alive. And then within 6 months of that being out, this came out. And then within 6 months of this being out, Rock and Roll Over came out. So these
Right.
guys that's insane to even think about. I think a lot of people really lose that these guys were, when they weren't on the road, they were recording albums, and they would get pulled off the road to record albums. So it was insane the amount of work that they were doing. And then to do something like this with Bob Ezrin, you got, love it or hate it, you got to respect it. You really have to respect this album. And I remember this was the first, this album means a lot to me because this album was the first Kiss album that I ever owned. I've told my story in the past, but I'll tell it for those of you who haven't heard it. Elvis had died, and I just came up on an anniversary. Elvis died on a Tuesday. He died this past week, but his actual death date in 1977 was on a Tuesday. That weekend, my grandma took me out to her run with her, where she would go to the grocery store and go to the drugstore. And the drugstores back then they were weird. They had like short order grills in them and malt shops and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so she took me out to this drugstore, and I did a video about it. It's something else now. But I walked in, and they had like as soon as you walked in the door, they had like a little thing of holding albums. And back during that time, it was real big for these type of albums that would have comic books in them. They were usually the Avengers, Fantastic Four. They'd be full-size albums like this, except they'd have a comic book in them. And the record would be, you would play it, and it would basically be the comic book, and you'd read along. It'd have all the sound effects, kind of like radio used to be.
Yeah.
And she asked me, she's like, do you want that album? That looks like that would be a good story. And I was like, sure, let's get this. And I didn't know who Kiss was. And so my grandma bought me this album a few days after Elvis died. And this is what started it all for me. And it's around the time of year that it started for me. So this is the origin of my Kiss fandom. And shortly after me becoming a fan in late August of 1977, Kiss in October would release Kiss Alive 2. And I mean, come on. I got Kiss Alive right after it came, Kiss Alive 2 right after it came out, and then shortly after that the solo albums, and then Phantom of the Park, and then Dynasty, Super Kiss, The Return of Kiss, and so all this era, this is kind of like my era of Kiss, and it all started with this album right here. So what do you think about, what's some of your thoughts on Destroyer, since it's the new challenger this time around? What's some of your thoughts on Destroyer without getting too much into the songs?
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think it's a great album. And I know for some people, it's an album for them that they really liked when they first heard it. And then with age, or after they hear more Kiss albums, they go, wow, I guess I don't like this as much as I thought I did. Or, but for me personally, I love it. And like you said, I mean, some of my favorite Kiss songs are on this album. And it's a really special album to me. But I think for the band itself, and it's kind of weird to say, but I think this album was almost the beginning of the end for the original four. This is where we start to see additional musicians trickle in. This is where we start to see the egos and the
excess.
The established. Yes, and they're a little bit more established now. They've got it under them now, and I think this was the beginning of the end for the original four, sadly. So this album's very bittersweet to me. I love it, but whenever I listen to it, I always think, yeah, I can start to see this is where it starts to split a little bit for them, and But overall, it's a fantastic album.
Yeah, and I think either Paul or Gene said it in their book. They were millionaires at this time. Up before Alive, they were living off of $50 a week. Getting paid directly off of Bill Aucoin's American Express card, and he was maxing it out. Paul talked about going in Aucoin's office to ask for a raise, a $10 a week raise, and he saw a hole in the bottom of Bill's shoe, and he couldn't muster the heart to ask him for a raise.
Right.
They were making $50 a week, touring their asses off, writing their asses off, but Alive changed everything for them. And it was, like you said, it was the beginning of the end. But Kiss had not hit the heights yet that they would hit when it comes to after they released Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun, Alive 2. They zenith straight up, skyrocketed. But yeah, I think this album was the beginning of the end for them. But I think it also, when it comes to people like Paul Stanley especially, I think this was a great, it made him a better songwriter, made him a better arranger and producer because Bob pushed him so hard. And I didn't want this to become a documentary about Destroyer, but this is one that I can't just match up against another album and then just because this is my baby. I don't love every song on here, but this is my baby.
Yeah.
All right, so
yeah,
let's talk about the panel. Trying to see how many we had in here this time. We had 49 on the panel this time, and we're going to talk about you guys. I'm going to list your names right now. It's me and Carla, and then from YouTube, Hard Rock Reverie, Rick R, Sonic Riccardi, Mikkel D, Michael Avant, Jay Rucker, That Toy Bonnie Guy, Jeremy Cremona, Emily Graziano, Stephen Jones, John B. Good, Raven FM, Paul Bertolino, Jesse Ray, Demetrius K, Trevor Bullock, Two Gay Dads, Kiss Army Rocks, Sublime 130, Roger Bennett, Gregory Pegg, John O, Super Kiss 1200, Joel Peg, Future Squash 767, Les Wadley, Travis Mulgard, Carolina Hard Rock Metalhead, Mickey A from Twitter, David King, Tom Dust, Aladio, Bob Zelinka, Tony Rod, Vanessa, Bill Sharp, Half Ace, Darren Helliwell, Andy, Jeff Wyatt, Instagram, Justin Hanson, AJ Zetro 1975, Michael Westbrot from Facebook, Richard Buffett, Matt Ucci, and Thomas Hubner. So that is our panel for this album, for this track to track. So before we get into it, I want to say up front that I don't think that this is going to be the runaway that everybody expects. I kind of went into this thinking that this was going to be tight. A lot of people were talking about, oh, it's going to be a landslide by this album, landslide by this album. This is an iconic album going up against a solid album. Dress to Kill is a solid album. Kiss Destroyer, maybe not so much, but it is an iconic album. And so that itself carries some weight. I think, me personally, I think the winner is going to be determined by one or two factors. Either the best tracks in the middle, if you know what I'm talking about, in the middle of the album, or who wins the B-side. Because I think the A-side is going to slam, but it's going to be who wins the B-side. But we wanted to add this as a new feature. My prediction, we're going to predict who we think is going to win. And my prediction is Destroyer. Favoritism, a little favoritism in there. Destroyer, but I do not think it's going to be a landslide. I predicted maybe by one track, but, you know. So what about you? Who do you think is going to win this one?
I think it's going to be close as well. Like in the last video, Dress to Kill basically took over side B, and I think Dress to Kill is definitely bringing some heavy hitters with this one. I think Destroyer is going to win, but like you, it's not going to be a runaway for sure. And I think there's going to be a few surprises as well.
It definitely, coming from me already knowing the result, it gets dicey in the middle. It really does.
I bet, yeah.
It really gets dicey in the middle. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Let's get into it. So track number one, Carla, what is your prediction for track number one?
Without a doubt, Detroit Rock City.
I predicted Detroit Rock City as well, without a doubt. And my personal pick for number one, Detroit Rock City. Track number one, like I said, I've already said it before, and I've said it many, many, many times. Detroit Rock City is a masterpiece of a song. And I love it on this album, and I love it on Kiss Alive too. Two totally different energies, but great. It's one of those songs that sounds good on the record, and it sounds good live. So Detroit Rock City is my pick for the track number one. What about you?
Detroit Rock City is mine as well, and I totally understand if people feel that it's fatigue for them. I get that 100%. It's songs that you hear all the time. But for me, I love it. I'm a little biased. I was married in Detroit. Detroit's a very special city to me. So for me, like when I hear this, it's just like, yeah, like they're talking about a city that I know. They're talking about a city that's really important to me, and they're calling us out. So I'm a little biased, but yeah, Detroit Rock City all the way.
Yeah, there's that pride there, Yeah, I could imagine when I was a kid, if they had a song called Charlotte Rock City, I'd be like, yeah, it's my town, man, it's my town. So I understand.
And the cool thing is, like, if you're at a sporting, like if you're at like a Red Wings game or if you're at a Tigers game and they play this song, because they always will at some point, it's like, it doesn't matter what genre of music you're into, the words to the song. It's amazing to hear at a game. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I love it when you hear the crowd go, "Get up!" That's awesome because everybody knows those words. You gotta You gotta lose your mind in Detroit Rock City. It's great. Okay, well, the panel. This was pretty much of a landslide. The panel chose against Room Service for track one, the panel chose Detroit Rock City, and it was 43-6.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty. It was one of those that was pretty definitive. But believe it or not, it wasn't one of the. It wasn't the most definitive vote on the album. There was a more definitive vote on the album. But yeah, so you guys, we collectively chose Detroit Rock City over Room Service. So what about moving on? I love the way the album transitions from Detroit Rock City into King of the Nighttime World, and Ace's guitar sounding like a siren. That wee 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 wee. It's just awesome. It's awesome. I always did love that. So what's your prediction for track two?
I think the panel's going to choose King of the Nighttime World.
All right. So we got King of the Nighttime World going against Two Timer, and I predicted that they were going to choose King of the Nighttime World as well. And my personal pick was King of the Nighttime World because to me these songs are bookends. It's weird to hear one without hearing the other. It's almost like We Are the Champions and We Will Rock You. You know, it's almost you got to hear both of them together. It's weird to hear Detroit Rock City just end, and it's weird to hear King of the Nighttime World just start. They got to be grouped together. So I love it. And being a cover song, it's still a great song. It was a cover song, but it was very, very much rewritten and reworked. But yeah, so going against Two Timer, I had to choose King of the Nighttime World because I'm not a fan of Two Timer anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly the same for me. I'm not really the biggest Two Timer fan. And the great thing about King of the Nighttime World is it really keeps that energy up that hits you with Detroit Rock City. And I really love that they didn't just dip down into Beth or something right after. I really like that they really kept the energy up with King of the Nighttime World. Great imagery. The way Paul's describing things, it's great. His vocals are great. It's a perfect song for him. So yeah, King of the Nighttime World for me.
Well, between Two Timer and the King of the Nighttime World, the panel chose 46-3 King of the Nighttime World over Two Timer. So that is pretty well definitive. And I've actually heard of some people not being a fan of King of the Nighttime World. Some people don't like Kiss songs just because they're covers. They like for Kiss to do their own thing, and I've heard that theory out there. I've heard that reasoning of people not liking songs, and that's cool, So that brings us to, you talk about keeping it going. That brings us to the next matchup, God of Thunder between Ladies in Waiting at track 3. What's your prediction?
God of Thunder, 100%.
The birth of the demon.
Yes.
I predict God of Thunder as well. It was a song. Everybody knows the story. It was a song originally written by Paul and demoed, and it was very much faster, and it was more about sex and being the God of Thunder that way. And Gene and Bob Ezrin took the song from Paul and took it in a little bit different direction, slowed it down. Sometimes, in my opinion, a little too slow. I like the speed that's on Alive 2 a little better. I actually like the Alive 2 version a little better than this one, but I do like the creepiness of the kids and just the overall atmosphere that the song has. And Gene at the end, where he's supposedly saying, I'm in hell. There's so much stuff you can hear and make yourself hear if you listen to this album and listen to this song. But yeah, God of Thunder over Ladies in Waiting for me. As well. And I actually I chose God of Thunder over Ladies in Waiting. Yeah.
Yeah, I chose God of Thunder. I mean, this is the birth of the demon, and it, like you said, it was Paul's song. It's kind of crazy how Paul wrote Gene's theme, but that's the way it happened. And this song is just so good, and it's dark and creepy, and it's just so good. And Gene, the way he does it, and I'm so glad that Bob Ezrin went the way he did with this song, And the thing with the kids, I mean, I know that they're Bob's kids, so of course he's gonna put him in there. Um, I think it's a little bit of overkill. I wish that they weren't in there as much. I like them in the beginning, and then just okay, they're great now. Let's just move on with the song.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that aside, it's still an amazing song. So yeah, Ladies in Waiting, it's okay.
The only part about the kids that bothered me is I kind of agree with you, I guess, in a way. I've never really thought about it, but the kids don't bother me till it gets towards the very end of the song. It comes out of that really creepy solo, and I wish that they would have maybe, since it was already in such a weird key and that drudging speed, that stomping, slushing speed. It would have been really cool if they would have threw in like a backwards solo or something like that. Ace did it just a couple years later on his solo album. I think that would have made it even more creepier. But when Gene comes out of that and he says, "I am the Lord of the Wasteland," and he's saying that, and that one kid's going, bah, 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 bah. It's almost like he's mocking him. And I'm like, shut up. Let the man sing. Shut up. Okay, we heard you at the beginning. Yeah, just shut up now.
Yep.
I agree.
Yep.
Totally.
I love it at the beginning, but that's what I'm saying. Once the beginning's over, like, we didn't need to hear them anymore. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the panel between God of Thunder and Ladies in Waiting, 44-5. The panel chose God of Thunder. So that's the first 3 tracks on the album have gone to Destroyer so far. But this next track is where I think that Dress to Kill is going to start giving Destroyers a run for its money. The matchup between Getaway and Great Expectations, which one did you predict?
I think the panel's going to go with Getaway, but I don't think it's going to be a runaway. But I think Getaway is going to win.
Okay. I actually predicted at this point in time, I predicted Great Expectations. And I wanted to throw in a kind of left field prediction just to keep things interesting. I kind of maybe got in your head a little bit and thought that you were going to go with Getaway, so I was going to go with my prediction. I was going to go with Great Expectations and just see what happens. But now my personal pick between Getaway and Great Expectations, my personal pick is Getaway. And this one was a hard song. This was hard for me because I used to not be a fan of Great Expectations. I hated the song when I was a kid because God of Thunder went off, and the first 3 songs just kicked ass. It was like a jab, an uppercut, and a punt, getting beat down on with God of Thunder, and then blah, da, 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 da. It's like, what the hell is this? And I think that is where a lot of Kiss fans went, what the hell, is going on when a song like Great Expectations comes on with the choir and this big grandiose orchestra. And but Gene, I love the way Gene sings in this, and this is a song that has definitely grew on me over time, and I love Great Expectations. I think it is one of the jewels or sequins in this album's crown. I think that Great Expectations is one of those songs that makes Destroyer. But I couldn't choose it against Getaway because Getaway is just such a great song, and I listened to these. This is one of those that I agonized over, so I listened to Great Expectations, and I was like, oh, I appreciate this. And then I listened to Getaway, and I was like, da 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 da, and I was like, okay, which one am I jonesing on more right now? Getaway. So I chose Getaway for me personally.
Okay, so in the last track versus track, I teased that there's a song I've been wanting to talk about forever, and I can't wait to defend it. This is it. Great Expectations, one of my favorite Kiss songs of all time. I love this song. To me, Gene wrote the perfect rock star obsession infatuation song. I've never heard it described as perfectly as he does. Like, I have definitely been at concerts and I've just stared at, the rock star, and I've just been like, oh my gosh, I would do anything to be backstage with you right now. And he described it perfectly. And I think it's a beautiful song. I know a lot of people say that this is a Gene solo album song. It doesn't deserve to be on Destroyer. I disagree. I think it's great. Um, I think it's an amazing song, and I will say I think it would have been kind of cool to have it on Love Gun for the album cover alone, because on Love Gun, there are these rock gods, right? And the women are literally at their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And in the song, Gene says, "Do you want to play the role? You'd even sell me your soul," or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And on the Love Gun album cover, that's what they're doing. They're giving themselves to the band. So I think it would have been cool on Love Gun, for the album cover alone. But Great Expectations, amazing song, one of my favorites. Remember, we're all a family here. We all like each other, so don't hate me for loving Great Expectations as much as I do. But obviously, I had to go with that over Getaway.
Yeah, it definitely shows a side of Gene. And you come out of God of Thunder, and you go from the God of Thunder into Great Expectations. It's two flip sides of Gene. You've got the Demon, and then you've got solo album Gene. And solo album Gene had already started showing aspects of solo album Gene all the way back to Hotter Than Hell, with songs like Going Blind. So, Gene has that side to him, and I think that's cool. That's one thing I've always loved about Gene is Gene can be the rocker. He can be the perverted guy talking about putting his log in your fireplace. And then he can turn around and sing a song like Going Blind, Great Expectations, songs like that. The panel chose 34 to 15 between Getaway and Great Expectations. The panel chose Getaway 34, Great Expectations 15. Not a bad, not quite one-sided, not quite even, but still not a bad matchup between those two.
That's a lot more. I mean, Great Expectations got a lot more than I thought it was going to get. I thought I was going to be the only one who'd vote for it. So, I mean, 15's not too bad.
All right. So that brings us down to the matchup. Track number 5 brings us to the matchup between Rock Bottom and Flaming Youth.
This was by far one of the hardest for me to choose that I thought the panel was going to go with. I think barely this will not be a runaway. I think it's going to be Rock Bottom, but not by much.
Okay. I was predicting Rock Bottom, and I also thought it was going to be very close. This is the middle that I thought, we're in that middle that I thought was going to determine who was going to win this album. And so my prediction was Rock Bottom. However, my pick was Flaming Youth because I love Flaming Youth. I've loved Flaming Youth ever since I was a kid. I love the way it starts the second side of this album and just kind of comes blaring out of there and everything. But this is one of those songs that could go either way, in my opinion. I actually think that the album, they named it Destroyer. I've said before that I think they should have named this album Flaming Youth. They should have had flames. They should have had a little more flame behind them because they redid the album cover to show not so much destruction. But they could have had a little more flames behind them. They were all young. Gene's hair already looks like it's on fire. And they could have named this album Flaming Youth. And I think that would have been really cool. But yeah, so for me, I picked Flaming Youth on this one.
I picked Flaming Youth as well, and this was the hardest one for me to pick personally. I mean, I was just going to have to flip a coin at some point because I just could not decide. And I had to think, well, which song sticks in my head longest? And it was Flaming Youth. When I hear this song, it's in my head for a week. And I'm humming to it, and I love it. And yeah, it's a rally cry. It's an anthem. It's got this energy to it that's just, it's just so big, this energy. And yeah, I think between the two, they're both amazing songs. I love them both, but Flaming Youth's just a little bit more for me than Rock Bottom.
Mm-hmm. Rock Bottom's a classic, and a lot of people hate Flaming Youth just because it's got the, what do they call it, the Calobi or the Calabi or whatever, the little music box thing. Can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like the fact that some of the background vocals they did where Gene was doing falsetto on Flaming Youth will set the world on fire, go real high up. But Paul's voice in this, when he's going higher and higher and higher, that sounds so great. And that riff, that dun 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 dun, that riff is so early Kiss. It's like a throwback to the first three albums. It's one of the few things on this album that sounds like anything on any album before it. And so
Right.
it's just got all these little facets to it that just makes it such an interesting song. But what would the panel choose overall between Rock Bottom and Flaming Youth? This was a close one. 25 to 24. 1 point difference. 1 point difference. Rock Bottom 25. Flaming Youth 24. So Rock Bottom won that one. So we've got so far 3 for Destroyer and 2 for Dress to Kill. So that brings us to the next track. That brings us to track number 6, the competition between Come On and Love Me and Sweet Pain.
I think it's going to be another close one, but I think that the panel's going to go with Come On and Love Me.
Okay. I predicted Come On and Love Me as well. And I chose Come On and Love Me as my track, my choice on this one, because it's Come On and Love Me. It's one of my favorite Paul songs. I think Paul did everything right in Come On and Love Me, and I just think it's great. So it's my pick.
Yeah, I chose Sweet Pain. I love this song. I love all of Gene's songs on this album, and to me, it's a great song. I will say I'm not crazy about the background singers. I just never liked that. To me, that just screams Gene solo. Like, to me, if any song was going to be on Gene solo, it would be Sweet Pain. But that being said, I still think it's a great song. And like Flaming Youth, it's a song that just sticks in my head. And I just keep humming the chorus, and I love it. So Sweet Pain for me.
I think the female background singers was a thing of the mid to late 70s, because they have female background singers on this album, on Rock and Roll Over, on Love Gun, on all 4 of their solo albums. I think there isn't any on Dynasty. I think there's not any female background singers on Dynasty. But it was just that whole thing where you had to have female background singers. It was kind of like in the mid 80s, you had to have a song, you had to have a saxophone player in your band,
Right.
or a flute player or whatever. So it's it's one of those things. And Sweet Pain is so weird, that weird offbeat, and then Gene, when he comes in, you have headphones on. It's like he French kisses your ears. He's like, oh, and it goes from one side to the other, and it just makes you feel so creepy, so creeped out. So yeah, Sweet Pain going up against Come On and Love Me. It wasn't as close as you think it was going to be. The winner won 41-8. 41-8. Come On and Love Me 41. Sweet Pain 8. So Come On and Love Me took that one, and we are now tied, ladies and gentlemen. We're tied going into the last part of the album. So track number 7. Anything for My Baby against Shout It Out Loud. What's your prediction?
This was another one that, for me, clear runaway, without a doubt, Shout It Out Loud.
I predicted Shout It Out Loud as well, and I chose Shout It Out Loud because I actually think Shout It Out Loud is a better anthem than Rock and Roll All Night. Me personally, between Rock and Roll All Night and Shout It Out Loud, I'll take Shout It Out Loud. I love the verses of this song. It's a pick me up song. If you're feeling down, put it on Shout It Out Loud, because that's basically what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to pick you up and hype you up and get you in a good mood. If you don't feel good, there's a way you could. Don't sit there brokenhearted. It's call on your friends in the neighborhood and get your party started. It's a great song. It's a party song. Don't let them tell you that there's too much noise. They're too old to really understand. It's awesome. I mean, it's awesome. It is a rock song, and it should be their anthem above a Rock and Roll All Night, in my opinion. Shout It Out Loud is the anthem to me. So it was my pick.
Yeah, it was my pick as well. I don't really like anything for my baby, but I mean, it doesn't really matter because I probably would have picked Shout It Out Loud no matter what it was up against. It's just, yeah, it's that anthem, it's that energy, it's that rally cry. And again, it's one of the songs you hear on radio, but for me, it's never fatigue. It's just every time I hear it, it's like, oh yeah, like I love this song, and I can't wait to jam out to, in my car for 3 minutes or whatever. So it's just a great song, period. Had to go with Shout It Out Loud.
Yeah, I love the way it starts. The kids these days, they say they keep waiting, you wait for the beat to drop. That's how Shout Out Loud is. It's got that long little intro, and then it repeats itself, and then it kind of steps down, and then it's like, the night's begun, and when it kicks in, that's when it kicks in, and even on the live too, they've got the cannon that they put in there,
Yep.
blowing up and everything. So that's when the beat drops, and that's when it's time to get down and shout it out loud. So I love it. So Shout Out Loud for track number 7 was going up against Anything for My Baby. This was definitive. 42-7 for Shout It Out Loud. Shout It Out Loud 42, Anything for My Baby 7. So Destroyers back up by 1 point. So, but that takes us to track 8. And track 8 we have She going against Beth. The classic going against the mega gargantuan hit for Kiss that put Kiss up on that next level. I mean, people flipped over Detroit Rock City to listen to Beth, and then they even re-released a single with Beth as the A-side. So, I mean, huge song for them, whether you like it or not. It's one of those songs you got to respect it. What's your prediction on this one?
I think the panel's going to go with She.
Yeah, I think the panel's going to go with She also. And me, myself, I went with She because I'm one of those people that I'm not the biggest fan of Beth. And it's not fatigue it's just I've never really been into it. And but I have totally respected the song for what it is, for what it's done for Kiss. And for those who love Beth, more power to you. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't like it, but it's never been one of those songs that has reached out and grabbed me. But I think it's great that Peter had his hit, and that song was, that Bob Ezrin once again, Paul didn't want to do it, and Gene heard Peter do it, and Gene heard Peter talk about it and took it to Paul, and Paul's like, no, I don't want to do it. And so then Gene took it to Bob, and Bob's like, yeah, we're doing it. So Paul got outvoted on it, and it's Beth. So that's what I picked as my pick. So what about you?
I went with She. To me, She's just one of those songs that I don't know a lot of songs that would win against She for me. I love She. I love the second it starts to the second it ends. I love every single thing about that song. Beth, like you said, I respect it for what it did for the band. I don't hate the song at all. I think it's great. And I think it's awesome that you like Beth to this day, about being out on the road and I wish I was home. And you hear that in all different genres of music. I've heard country songs that are pretty much Beth. I've heard R&B songs that are pretty much Beth. And it all kind of started with Kiss. So I think that's kind of cool that that song had such a huge impact on music. But at the end of the day, I just had to go with She. It's just a better song in my opinion.
All right. So the matchup, She to Beth. It was a landslide, 39 points to 9 points, 39-9. The panel chose She over Beth, 39-9. So that puts a tick back on Dress to Kill. So we are at the very end here. And what do you think is going to be, what's your prediction between track 9, Love Her All I Can, and Do You Love Me?
I think it's going to be pretty tight, but I think it's going to be Do You Love Me?
Okay. I predicted Do You Love Me as well. And this was a tough one for me. This was my second tough one, my final tough one on the album. This was hard for me because I love both these songs. I love Do You Love Me and I love Love Her All I Can, both of them. And it's it was a hard one to choose, but I chose Love Her All I Can between the two of them.
I went with Do You Love Me. I love this song. I love the Bob Ezrin touches. I think Paul just does an amazing job on this song. I love, again, like King of the Nighttime World, I love the imagery of this song. When Paul's describing, backstage pass with your black sunglasses make you look just like a queen, I can see her. I can see this woman that he's talking about, and I just think it's a great song. So for me, Do You Love Me? That was my pick.
Okay. You can like you mentioned, you can really hear Ezrin's influence in this, and I think although Paul would get really good at writing bridges and writing things like that, he had already showed that he could do it in some earlier writing. But on a song, whenever this song Do You Love Me, when it starts off that rocker with that rocking drum beat, and then Paul comes in with his awesome, powerful, you really like my limousine. The way he comes in, he sounds so damn good. But whenever this song, when it comes out of Do You Love Me the second time, and it breaks into that da-na-na, da-na-na, and it goes into that bridge you're talking about, your backstage pass and black sunglasses, and then makes you look just like a queen, and then there's the little key change, da-na. So that to me is what Ezrin brought to that song, and he taught Paul, here's how you write a bridge. This is how you do it. If you're going to change up a song, if you're going to do a bridge in between, your chorus and your last chorus or whatever you're going to do, this is how you do it. Because that is like, that part of that song to me is always kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. It doesn't sound like something that Paul had done up to that point. It was really kind of out of the ordinary. But I think it's one of the best parts of the song. So,
yeah.
But
I think it.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was at the end. I hear Ezra a lot at the end. Bob Ezrin. I hear him a lot at the end with the production with the bells and everything. And I hear that, and then of course you get Preacher Paul at the end a little bit. And I know a lot of people do not like Preacher Paul. I love Preacher Paul. And to me, he always says, like, that was one of his things. He wanted to be kind of this preacher on stage. And so when he gets to do that, I know that he loves it. And I know he's happy. So I hear that in his voice. And that's why I love Preacher Paul. But you get a little bit at the end of this song.
Yeah, he wanted to be like Mark Bolan from T-Rex. And he wanted to be Preacher Paul. And who don't like Preacher Paul? This guy. I give him a lot of hard times over it and everything. But I'm okay with it on the album. But whenever he gets a little too over the top with it sometimes live. Like, I love the song I Want You, but I like the studio version better than the live version for the most part, because I don't like, whoa, 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 yeah. And the way he messes up later on, I Still Love You for me. I can't listen to I Still Love You live. I love the song on Lick It Up, but I cannot listen to it live because Gymnastics Preacher Paul comes out, and I don't like it. All right. Okay, so this was close. This was a close one. Between Love Her All I Can and Do You Love Me, there was only separated by 3 points. But the winner, 26 to 23, is Love Her All I Can over Do You Love Me.
Wow.
So that made, that puts Love Her All I Can in another tick on the win list for Dress to Kill. Now, a lot of people said that track 10 was unfair because it was not technically a track. And it is a track. It is not a song. Some people's like, it's not a song. I never said it was a song, but it's a track. But it's a bonus track. But it's a track. track. So, and I figured, honestly, that Destroyer would, if it's just going to come down to one track, I mean, this is the juggernaut Destroyer. Did you know? And if the album itself only needed 9 official songs, wouldn't 9 official songs and a bonus track be enough to beat Dress to Kill? You know, maybe not, because we actually had people who picked Rock and Roll Party over Rock and Roll All Night because of fatigue. There's people out there, they don't like Rock and Roll All Night just because of fatigue. So, what is your prediction between Rock and Roll All Night and Rock and Roll Party?
I think it's going to be Rock and Roll All
Night. Okay. I predicted Rock and Roll All Night as well. And I chose Rock and Roll All Night. But this could have probably been almost any other song, and I might not have chose Rock and Roll Overnight. I don't know. But no, I do like Rock and Roll All Night. I give it a hard time, but I do like it. So, which one did you choose between the two?
I chose Rock and Roll All Night. It's just a song that, even though the live version is way better, you gotta respect it. It's a good song. I will say, though, I really do like Rock and Roll Party. I think it's really cool and creepy, and you know, if you play that song in a haunted house, it's gonna freak you out. It's spooky, and I think that's cool. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that it was kind of a response to people saying that there were hidden messages in songs, and if you play them backwards and they talk about Satan, and so that was just kind of their response, and then just kind of having fun. I don't know if that's true. I just read it somewhere, but I think Rock and Roll Party's cool, but I went with Rock and Roll All Night.
I don't know if I heard it or read it, but I think that Rock and Roll Party, or that it was basically a total creation by Bob Ezrin and the engineer, if I'm not mistaken. That Kiss really didn't have anything to do with it. And it's basically just this mixture of, you hear stuff from Great Expectations in there, and of course you hear Paul. It sounds like Paul's verses thing that he's saying in there is from Alive, where he says, "Looks like we're gonna have ourselves a rock and roll party tonight," and it's like they cut off tonight, and it's just like, "Oh, looks like we're gonna have ourselves a rock and roll party," and they cut tonight off of it. So I always thought it was very interesting. Even from the very first time that I heard it, I always thought it was very interesting. And it's a really cool way to close the album, because it's the bookend of the audio stuff at the front, and then it's the thing at the end. The guy crashed and he ended up in hell, with the Rock and Roll Party. So this album, it's like I said, this is when Kiss was still considered dangerous, and the front of the album, they're standing on rubble, and I know it's by the master Ken Kelly and everything, but this is just, it's a very iconic image. So what the panel actually chose, this is pretty much a landslide, because we cheated a little. If you want to be mad, but we cheated a little. And so 46-3, Rock and Roll All Night beat Rock and Roll Party. So what that does is that means that Dress to Kill wins 6-4. So 6-4. So even if we took Rock and Roll Party off, the competition between Rock and Roll Party, if we took it off, it would have still been 5-4. So it's still, Dress to Kill still would have won. It would have beat So it's the very end track was just, man, let's throw a little salt on the wound and let's have an actual legit anthem song go up against an amalgamation of sounds. So
Yeah.
so I'm going to let you guys decide, and it is going to be decided by you down in the comments. I actually have two ways I would like to go right now with this, but I will let you guys decide which ones that you want me to do. Before we talk about our favorite album cover between the two, we're going to talk about this. Since Dress to Kill won, would you like to see Dress to Kill? Now, see, Dress to Kill technically was the loser between the first three albums. You remember that the first Kiss album beat Harder Than Hell, and then Harder Than Hell beat Dress to Kill. So we sent a loser to go up against Destroyer, and the loser beat Destroyer. So the question is, do you want me to send the loser to battle against Hotter Than Hell, or do you want me to have a good old knockdown, slug 'em, drag out fight between Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun? Which match do you want to see next? There's no rhyme or reason. I'm just making it up as we go along. So down in the comments, you are going to decide. Is this the matchup you want? Or is this the matchup you want? You decide. So which would be the matchup that you would want to see, Carla?
I kind of want to see Love Gun go up against Rock and Roll Over. That one just seems really interesting to me. Because that, that could go a few different ways. That one's really interesting to me.
I honestly think that's going to be the one that people are going to flock to, because I think that people love those two albums, and you have the people that is their favorite. So since you've kind of voted in that way, and me and you will put our votes down in the comments of the video. Since you went in that direction, I'm going to stand as an advocate for the other camp, and I'm going to say I would like to see this heavy metal, early metal masterpiece, what some people consider early metal masterpiece, go against this. Because I honestly think that this album might kick this one's butt. but that'd be interesting to see. So you guys, comment down in there. Do you want Harder Than Hell, track versus track against Destroyer? Or do you want track versus track? Do we want to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit prematurely and have Kiss Love Gun and Kiss Rock and Roll Over battle it out against each other? So, what's your favorite album cover between the two?
I love both so much. But to me, Destroyer's just so iconic. And I think it's just one of those album covers that I think people who aren't even that big into Kiss, they know that album cover. If they're just into music or if they're just into whatever, they know that album cover. They've seen that before. Dress to Kill, maybe not so much. Yeah, I just think Destroyer is a little bit more iconic. I love them both, but that's the one I would go with.
For me, it's Destroyer all the way. Destroyer is not only just the most iconic, but it's the very first image I ever seen of Kiss. Before I ever seen them on TV, before I ever seen them in a magazine, it was my very first glimpse of Kiss. And they were it wasn't even a picture. It was a drawing. It was a painting. And it intrigued me, and it made me want to dig in deeper and deeper. And like I said, it wasn't very long before my very second album was Kiss Alive 2, and got the book, got the tattoos, and just the iconic pictures of the band that's on the back cover of that album with Gene with the blood all over him, and just the iconic photos of Paul and Ace and Peter along with it, and the gatefold, one of the most awesome pictures ever captured and slapped inside the middle of an album. The gatefold of Alive 2, hands down one of my favorite pieces of album artwork of all time is Alive 2. But yeah, I'm definitely going with Destroyer on this one. It's just so iconic that it really can't be denied. Even though I love Dress to Kill just as much, but that one is Kiss. Destroyer is Kiss. Anyway.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is all we've got for this one. Be sure to comment down in the comment section. Let us know. It's entirely up to you guys. And I'm going to let you guys decide it. And if there's a tie, then I'll just pick one. I'll flip a coin. And we'll go from there. But that's all we've got for this episode of Track versus Track. Carla, thank you for hanging out with me again this week.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks for giving me an hour of your time, and we appreciate each and every one of you guys. Subscribe, comment down in the comment section, give it a thumbs up, share it. If you want to share it with your other Kiss fans that don't know about it, and you want to let them see their favorite Kiss albums battle it out against each other, be sure to share this video series. And we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
Yep. Bye, guys.